Hello, and thank you for tuning in to McDougalls Medicine with Dr. John and Mary McDougall. I'm their daughter and your host, Heather McDougall. And tonight, just like every Sunday night, I'm going to try to get to as many questions as I possibly can. But first, I want to say hi to you, Mom and Dad. And I know you have something to talk about tonight, Dad, to start us out with. Nice to see you both. How are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. We're doing good. I'm a little bit behind on things, but
I know you're still getting organized because this is something you just found out about. So
Well, he's been working on it all afternoon, it seems like.
no, I was working on other things too.
Oh, all right.
But I mean, how much more timely than I can get than to tell you about an article
Wow.
that came out today in the weekend edition of USA Today. Okay, I mean, October 1st, 2023, an article came out. I know the weekend division issues of USA Today are not all that hot, but if you search it out, you're going to find it, October 1st, 2023, on type 2 diabetes, the steep cost of type 2. When diabetes dragged her down, she chose to fight. I don't know what the fight is she made, but I can tell you, this is about a lady. She's 52 years old, and she plans out every second of every minute from the time she wakes up at 4 a.m. to the time she goes to bed, exactly 1 hour after dinner. Her diabetes doesn't leave her much room for spontaneity. Her whole life. I mean, you know, a type 2 or type 1 diabetic too, but let's just talk about type 2 diabetics now. You spend your whole day, your whole week, your whole month, your whole year, your whole life thinking about this disease and paying for it. I mean, your whole day is dominated. You start out with a fasting blood sugar in the morning, then you check it every couple hours throughout the day, and you're giving yourself pills in the morning, pills late afternoon, shots every few hours. You don't have much time for your kids or your job. You know, I wonder why, I don't wonder now, but I wonder why employers decide that they'd rather not have people with type 2 diabetes working for them. They get hired less often, people with type 2 diabetes. Maybe it's because they spend too much of their time thinking about their diabetes as opposed to their job. Could be something I just thought of right now.
Is that a legal question? Can you ask?
I don't know. It's nothing I do. Oh, can you ask?
Can an employer ask if someone has
Mary,
diabetes? Is that legal?
well, I don't know. I don't get into that part, but I can tell you, you can pretty much pick.
Yeah, I know it.
You can. I mean, I hate to say it, but you can observe things in people and they come to conclusions that maybe bias is incorrect and so on. But this one's correct. Type 2 diabetics are overweight, because that's how you get the type 2 diabetes, is being too weight, developing insulin resistance, and now you're tied to shots and pills and doctor's appointments and spending your whole day with your diabetes. Overweight people develop type 2 diabetes. It's a normal adaptive response. Anyway, I just wanted to, it's a 24-hour day, 7 days a week job. One wrong step can lead you to be really sick or having a medical emergency. Can you imagine that, sorting in your day with all the shots and pills?
I'm thinking about that all day long.
And wondering whether you're going to end up in the emergency room tonight because of a hypoglycemic reaction, because you didn't, but that's what she does. Okay, she says, she takes metformin and Jardiance for her diabetes, omeprazole that's a proton pump inhibitor, antacid for her acid reflux, Lipitor for her cholesterol. She separates her pills by one and then pops them all in her mouth. She pulls out the pre-filled syringe of Ozempic.
Oh, she got that too?
Yeah, she got that too. From the top shelf of the refrigerator door. Every Wednesday, she uses a highlighter-sized device to inject 2 milligram dose of the medication. Oh, that's the Ozempic.
Oh, okay.
Okay, she looks at her reflection in the dark kitchen windows as she pulls her leopard print dress shirt, presses the 2 injecting pens into her belly, and patience waits for the medication to drain with a rapid click. $25,000 a month too. And ladies and gentlemen,
That's terrible.
so she fights back. I guess I didn't get to the part where she really fought back. Battle, because she's fighting back against all the drugs, but she's not fighting to get back to get well.
No. Well, what it says here makes her happy. Sunflowers make her happy.
Yeah.
So that's what you need something happy when you're dealing with this disease.
So she doesn't want to make her, I know how to,
Yeah, she
I know how
wants
she
you
can
to
be happy.
die,
I know how she
yeah.
can be happy about sunflowers and her X disease.
Really?
Look, I want you to take the trouble to do some reading. In the lectures I give, in the references, the articles I write on my website, I always link the scientific research to it. So you can look up the articles. For example, you'll find an article published in 2003 about the Chinese population and their incidence of type 2 diabetes. Back then, in the year 2003, published in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, was an article which came to the conclusion that 12% of Chinese people living in China have type 2 diabetes. I mean, they're frankly diabetic. That's important. No, that's 12%. Frankly, they have to take these kind of stuff she takes.
Oh, okay.
50% are on the verge of diabetes. They're pre-diabetic. Similar statistics you find in Europe, the United States, and so on. But the key thing on the second page, if I remember correctly, this article, it says, before 1980, fewer than 1% of the Chinese population had type 2 diabetes. Before 1980, 90% of the food source was white rice. This is 100% preventable disease.
I wonder if they check 10 years from now, the statistics will be a lot different.
Well, it'll be just higher.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Now only 80% of people are overweight and obese.
Just
Pretty soon,
10 years from now, it's going to be much worse.
A social outcast to be as thin as we are.
That's
but the important point is this has ruined this woman's life, her family's life. It's cost her family, her community, time, money, pain, suffering, attention that should be paid other places because the food industry has hooked her on a very profitable disease, which happens to be supplied to by medical doctors, hospitals, and drug companies that can be cured basically overnight. Well, not really. Not really. The big changes come overnight. We get nearly 90% of people to reduce or stop their diabetic medication in 12 days, 10 days, 12 days. In 12 days, that's the data from that study. 90% of people reduce or stop their diabetic medications in 12 days.
Well, and they go on to actually cure it.
Oh, yeah. But see, my caveat there, my one thing that I wanted to add, when I told you in 12 days, most would be cured.
Oh,
pretty close, except if you're too fat. And because the disease is caused by becoming too fat. You know, I told you about this. I think it's I won't tell you which newsletter right now. I think it's October 2002. But anyway, you'll read an article called Diabetes and a Normal Adaptive Response. It's on my newsletter page, which is drmcdougal.com. And, what you'll realize is that the reason people develop type 2 diabetes is an adaptive response so they don't become morbidly obese. You need to gain a little fat before fall and winter to get it through the sparse times when food is less available. Fall and winter. Okay, so you put on an extra 20, 30 pounds of body fat, but the body says that's enough. Pretty soon you're not going to be able to outrun tigers. You're not going to be able to fit in the cave entrance. You'll freeze to death outside. 20, 30 pounds is enough to make it through the winter. And as an adaptive response, what the body does is it develops insulin resistance so that the insulin doesn't work as well. Why is that important? Because insulin drives fat into the fat cells. Insulin lets sugar into your regular cells. So when you develop insulin resistance, less fat accumulates. So you're less likely to become morbidly obese. It's for your survival. But because there's less effective insulin, you develop insulin resistance, your blood sugar goes up. When you get rid of the need for this adaptive response and you use the excess fat, you are cured. A type 2 diabetic makes as much, if not twice as much insulin from their own pancreas, not from shots, from their own pancreas, as somebody without diabetes. This has all been known for 50 years. And here this lady, October 1st, 2023, is telling us that her life is being ruined by type 2 diabetes. This is criminal. Questions, Heather. I just got inspired by this art, because I see the suffering in individual people. I'm just happy when I can help you get off your diabetic medications, which you will do if you have type 2 diabetes. That's correct. You will get off your medications. Then your blood sugars will become close to normal if you have type 2 diabetes. If you have type 1.5, that's another story. And type 1 always has to take insulin. So there's a big difference there. But the fact that this is all solid science, every well-educated person knows this, comes to this conclusion. An honest person does. A person interested in people, in the welfare of patients and the planet, whatever. They don't ignore the science for the sake of making money. Or do they?
I was just gonna say.
I mean,
Sure about
are
that?
people really that bad? I mean, that you'd allow somebody to go through what Miss Taylor went through, spending her whole day thinking about her diabetes, neglecting her family, spending $25,000 a month, and she's sick and she's worried about going to the hospital with emergencies. Is it worth making consciously? I realize most doctors are unconscious about this subject, but they could be consciously allowing this person, which is known as their patient, to be sick. This is criminal. I say that with a smile because nothing's going to be done. I've been at this for 55 years and nothing's been done. This is old information. This was known in 1927 when Shirley Sweeney did his experiments on his medical students. In 1940, Percival Hinsworth published the classic study in the British Medical Journal that proved type 2 diabetes was due to a high-fat diet. James Anderson, University of Kentucky, their endocrinology department, he was able to get more than half of the people who have diabetes off their insulin and almost every type 2 diabetic off their pills and their insulin. This is old information that is being kept from the public. I would only guess by the same thing other people are lied to for.
Well, if they tell the public the real truth, then there's no money in the drugs that they're making.
Well, when I gave that lecture on the 11th of October, 2023, when I got my award, which I'm going to stop talking about,
Okay.
but I really feel honored.
September 11th.
October 11th, wasn't
No, September. It's
Oh,
only
September.
October 1 today.
it? Okay. Shows you what old age will do for you. Okay. Thank you. You were there, so you saw it. What I told the doctors when I made the presentation, I said, things are going to change. And, you can decide what you want to do. You can emulate change that's caused by disasters like floods and fires and wars and things like that. And you'll be forced to eat a starch-based diet. Or you can change because you are educated. You believe in science. You believe in history and geography. And you use this gathered information to understand that the human being is a starch eater. And you will know, like I told you in China, they didn't have type 2 diabetes before 1980. Nor did they in Africa, nor did they in any part of the world, whether it be Mexico, Central America, South America, where people still ate primarily starch as their diet. Now, what I told the young doctors there are about 300-400 medical people there, is I said, look, right now, you know how to treat, or you're just learning how to treat comorbid diseases like diabetes and obesity and heart disease and so on. But these are going to disappear because people are going to be forced to change their diet in the next 10 to 20 years. So I said, you ladies and gentlemen better find other purpose in your life. Like cardiologists, learn how to drive a taxi. I strongly encourage it.
I've always wanted to say that.
Diabetologists, learn how to drive a bicycle because you don't deserve a driver's license because you're not reading the study book. God, it gets so frustrating, Heather. I'm done. I'm done.
Well, thanks for bringing that up. And it's important. People don't realize that there is a cure to diabetes. They think they're doomed. And so it's
But
really
Heather, there are responsible people. I'm a doctor. I'm a scientist. It's my duty to know the truth. So what is going on with most of my colleagues? Did they give up their intention in life to help other people? Did they just decide that they're going to deny their Hippocratic oath?
No, they don't read any of the literature that comes out
Yeah,
like you
well,
do.
they read the pamphlets from the cute little girls with short skirts from the drug industry that come
Well,
along.
that's because they're from the
It's a pamphlet. The office staff takes donuts and pizzas at the front desk, so they read the pizza box. You're being cheated. I wish you'd go tell everybody this. Just for let's just take on obesity and type 2 diabetes. Let's not bother with rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and kidney failure and strokes. And let's just go after them for type 2 diabetes and obesity, which you, in your lifetime, unless you're really young, you have observed the change in the physical condition of the human population in the last 40, 50, 60 years. You've seen it. You used to remember the time when there were no overweight people in Asia. You know this. You've seen the radical change in the Western diet with the availability of rich foods to everybody and anyone. All they have to do is have a car and a few dollars, and they drive through a fast food window, and they get instant king food called Burger King.
You don't even need a car anymore.
You can ride up your bike.
No,
Maybe they get an exercise. I can just call.
You can just call on
Would
your door.
Would you send me 2 plates of king food and a plate of queen food, please? I'd like to get my diabetes up a little better. Please tell everybody there's this crazy man called Dr. John McDougall that think you're acting criminally. And I really do. And I'd be glad to contest you in any way you want. In a lecture, in a debate, we can write together in a debate, appear live on YouTube if you want. We could talk to some type of health organization for the government. Do something. I've told you the truth. I've supplied the truth for you. You can read it. If you're a doctor, a scientist, a medical person, go read what I said and come on this show and tell Heather, I disagree with Dr. McDougall, and this is why. Next question, please. Okay. Get me off this.
Said you were going to get done.
You mean first question? We haven't even gotten to the first question.
Heather, I think we should put me in isolation for 2 days before I do this show, because I just get. I guess I think you probably can feel a little frustration in me that I've spent my whole life. I've gathered the research. I've taken care of 12,000 people, 6,000 in a living setting. I've written scientific research. Why do they keep getting away with this? I mean, Ralph Nader fixed the cars, didn't he? Got safety belts.
Yeah. Right.
Luther Terry stopped us from smoking in 1964 with the Surgeon General's report on smoking. Where are you people who need to stand up?
Well, there's 365 people watching right now. So,
well, I only want one of them. I just want one of you to go to somebody who's important, far more important than Mary and I and you, and ask this question: is type 2 diabetes 100% curable? And if they say no, you say talk to Dr. John McDougall.
I like that. Okay, you ready for some questions? I've got lots coming in. All right. Oh, this is even about diabetes. Okay, this is from Baby. They had their blood checked to make sure they weren't type 1.5, but they're 5'2", 98 pounds, and they wake up with a high morning blood sugar. Why would that be?
I would guess type 1.5. I don't know how you could prove you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. You can do a C-peptide, which is a breakdown product of insulin. You can measure the amount of C-peptide. And so they might see a little bit of C-peptide produced, but it can't be a normal amount. They can't be producing a normal amount of insulin at that body weight. So I would have to say they have some type of problem with insulin production. The efficiency of the insulin is down. And I don't know of any test you can guess. Like I say, you do something called a C-peptide to guess it. And you might see that the pancreas is making a little insulin, but it's not a very accurate test. So I'd have to look over why somebody came to the conclusion that somebody who's 92 pounds, 5 foot tall, and has elevated blood sugar in the morning thinks they have type 1.5 diabetes. I can't imagine. And what's wrong with having a slightly high blood sugar in the morning? Why don't you stop eating before you go to bed at night? You're supposed to do a 12-hour fast before you touch your blood sugar. I mean, that's one thing to do, but I mean, the rest of the day, I assume it's good. So I think you need more information, and unless you have something called type 1 diabetes, where you get real sick, you end up in the hospital, you end up in intensive care unit. I think I've told you the story as a young medical student, a resident. What they do, of course, is make the medical students and residents do all what we call scut work. It's just the hard, dirty work in a hospital. And I can remember many, many nights I stayed up all night, making sure my type 1 diabetics got enough, but not too much insulin. Give them a little shot through the IV needle every, hour or so. That was my job. And then they'd get out of ketoacidosis. We send them home, better regulated, make sure they took their insulin. They do okay. Type 1 diabetics they don't do so.
But we don't know what she is, so
She says she was type 1.5. She thinks she is.
she thinks she, yeah.
I don't believe it. Or at least I don't understand it. I'm not going to say I couldn't be wrong, but I certainly like to see why somebody says you're a type 1.5 diabetic. Now, if they told me that you were in the hospital yesterday, you were in ketoacidosis, I'd say, hey, you pretty much got type 1 diabetes. You don't make any insulin at all. But if you're staying out of the hospital, your blood sugars are at a reasonable level. What's reasonable? Depends on what your definition is. Reasonable used to be below 200 milligrams per deciliter. And then it was 180, and then it was 160, and then it was 140, and now it's 126 milligrams per deciliter. If you're above that, you're diabetic. Why did the target blood pressure change over my career?
Target blood sugar.
What did I say? Blood pressure? Thank you, Mary. That's right. It's target blood sugar. Why did the target blood sugar change from 200 to 180 to 160 to 140 to 126? Think about what happens to your customer base. Think about how many people you have to buy your diabetic medication if you say they're diabetic, if their sugars are over 200.
Wasn't it the same with cholesterol?
Yeah, they did the same thing with cholesterol and blood pressure and the whole thing. What they did is they would put the targets so that they would have a maximum number of people in their customer base. So if I say a normal weight is 140 at 5'11" tall, which is what I am, that you need to take Ozempic. If I sold Ozempic, I could do that, right? Heather,
Enough.
enough.
You guys are funny.
You probably should erase this show. But I really
Okay,
do.
next question. This is from KH. They want to know what your opinion of light salt is. It's basically regular salt combined with potassium chloride.
Not a good idea. Not a good idea for one thing. Potassium chloride exists no place in nature. It has to be manufactured. Sodium chloride, of course, is every place in nature. Potassium chloride will cause the potassium in your blood to go higher, to the point where your potassium may reach 7 milliequivalents per liter, which is deadly. Your heart goes into irregular rhythms, stops. So you can get to that point by ingesting potassium salts. I've seen it once. One of my patients who had heart trouble went home, got the message that the key was a low salt diet, so she bought no salt, made a spaghetti sauce for her husband. Didn't do much measuring, I don't think. He ended up in the hospital with a high potassium and almost dead. Sodium chloride is not as big a deal as you think. The reason sodium is associated with heart disease and obesity and diabetes and so on is because of the company it keeps. You get 70% in the sodium in your diet from indiscretionary foods. In other words, you don't choose, like bacon and cheese and cake mixes, etc.
Well, almost all the packaged foods, all the fast foods, all the packages they buy in the store, they all have hidden salt.
Let's see, they all have hidden salt. Yeah, they're all loaded with salt. Why? Because people like salt. That's why they put it in the foods. We won't eat it without the salt. But anyway, it's not the salt shaker that you're dumping on the food, whereas where you could get the taste if you were just allowing your tongue to touch the surface of the food. Don't put it in the cooking. So you get a maximum amount of taste, what you're looking for. Salt is what you love. I know that. You know that. But you don't get all the other deadly parts of the problem, which are the pig fat and the pig cholesterol and the pig muscle and the pig intestines and all the other things that are making you sick. It's not the salt. You can only see harms and benefits of sodium intake at the extremes. Like, for example, the Korean soldiers during the Korean War, their sodium was measured. They took in 11,000 milligrams of sodium a day. The Korean soldiers, no increase in risk of stroke. The Japanese population, they recorded a study where they took in 16,000 milligrams of sodium. They had a higher risk of stroke. The diet that lowers blood pressure and reduces the risk of disease is one that has no sodium in it at all. It's the Kempner diet. It has fewer than 500 milligrams of sodium in it. In studies done where they have people reduce their sodium intake by 1,700 milligrams. I know I'm giving you a lot of figures. 1,700 milligrams down to 2,300 milligrams a day. The reduction in blood pressure is 3 millimeters on the top and 0.6 of a millimeter on the bottom. It hardly makes any difference at all. However, you eat the rest of the diet, with all the fat and cholesterol and animal foods and just the wrong things. What happens is your system gets sick, the blood vessels get clogged up, they go into spasm, there's all kinds of sludging going on, and the body to survive raises its pressure. We went all the way from half salt to this discussion. That's really bad. Don't use half salt. Use a little sodium on the surface of the food for taste. And you don't get much sodium, so you make everybody happy. Those people who say high salt diets give you strokes, yeah, it's 16,000 milligrams. And those who say low salt diets help you, yeah, if you wash your rice like Kempner did. But those of you in between, there ain't much difference. Because it's not the sodium, it's the pig. Am I getting better, Heather?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Okay, next question. This is from Zaris 666. What's the best way to avoid too much protein on the starch solution?
Well, I've limited. If you ever get a copy of my book, Mary and I wrote it in 78, 79. I call it Making the Change. What you'll find is in the recipes that we provided, because, we're still learning a lot about this. I knew that too much protein was a problem, and too much salt could be a problem, and too much sugar could be a problem, and too much oil could be a problem. So Mary and I developed these little symbols, and you'll see them right next to each recipe. A honeybee for the sugar, salt shaker for the salt, protein, pea pods, yeah. And then
King's Crown.
So for the oil?
Yeah.
No, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have these little symbols next to it. It's because there was a certain category of very sick people. I've told you over and over again, when I developed this program, it was for the sickest of the sickest. It was for people like took care of Kempner. I was interested in people who are on the edge of death, bringing them back to life. So when it came to a person with liver disease, they don't tolerate protein well, or kidney disease, or osteoporosis, or kidney stones. They're all due to excess protein. I suggested you limit your bean, pea, and lentil intake, which are vegetable proteins, to about 1/2 cup a day. It's a lot of beans, peas, and lentils. That's on average. It was a cup a day or 1/2 cup a day. Well, you can look it up. But anyways, it's a limitation on those particular problems. We have a copy of that book, John.
Yeah. Do you want me to show you what the little symbols were?
You can go get it.
Okay.
I got their curiosity, Mary.
Okay.
All right. So because I was interested in taking care of that particular category of people, I wanted everybody to get as well as possible. But what I discovered over time was this wasn't just a rare condition. Most people on the Western diet are sick. They need this excellent nutrition. I was going to say extreme. Excellent nutrition. You come to me and you say to me, look, Dr. McDougall, I got high blood pressure, I got type 2 diabetes, I got high cholesterol, I'm too fat, I'm constipated. And I say to you, well, do you want the half cure? No, doc, no, I'm paying your fee. I want the full cure. Or you come to me with pneumonia, you're dying, and penicillin will cure you. I ask you, patient, do you have enough money to pay for the full dose of penicillin? Or would you just be happy with buying a half a dose of penicillin? I felt I owed you the best I knew. Now, it turned out the best I knew or know turns out to be the best way to eat there is. Fills you up. You love the food. It's everything you enjoy as far as taste goes. The only drawback is you don't stay sick. So the drug companies suffer, the doctors suffer, the hospitals suffer, the food companies suffer. That's who suffers. But this lady, Miss Taylor, she wouldn't suffer. I'd love to have her in my practice. I'd love to have her 12 days. Maybe we should, maybe one of you 364 people, you know, somebody at USA Today, that'll send Miss Taylor to our next program this October. And then write an article. How about that?
Oh, yeah.
Show them pictures.
Oh, well, this is the book, but the pictures were never in these.
Show them up like, oh, we didn't put them in?
No, they're in this one.
Oh, okay.
This is it. This is the,
Thank you. This is the book. You see this called Making the Change. When you watch the lecture I gave during the luminary presentation, you won't catch a lot of the symbolism because it represents 55 years of our life. But on the last slide, there's a picture of this book called Making the Change. And there's a challenge. Are we ready to make the change to save our planet and people? I've been talking about making the change since 1978, 55 years.
all
Show
right,
me.
here's the book.
Here's the books. Okay.
Symbols.
Can you see these, Heather? See the salt shaker and see the
Yeah.
teapot.
The
I
teapot.
remember those.
You see those?
Yeah.
So anyway, like I say, I did this because I never wanted you to come back to me and say I didn't get well. You told me what to do and I didn't get well. You could come back to me and say it was too hard for me. I understand that. I mean, this is not easy when you lived a lifetime of grease and salt and dead animals. I know it's not hard, not easy. But I don't want to let you down. If you do what I say, not only will you get well from, let's just say 80% of the conditions, you'll be dramatically better in almost every condition if you do it. But, I realized that, if it was easy, I wouldn't be here at 5 o'clock every Sunday night Pacific time talking to you. You'd have bought this book, which we published in 1983. And you'd have said, Dr. McDougall, we don't need you, which is the end of the story I was going to tell you. I started the story. I told you I was talking to a group of medical people. What I explained to them is they really needed, I did tell you that. They really needed to learn a new profession because all the problems that I tried to cure in this book will be gone when we switch to a starch-based diet, which we're going to have to because of war and drought and famine. They're not going to be any food. You think we're going to be able to waste the soybeans and the potatoes and the rice on the cows and pigs and chickens? You'd be glad if you have enough to feed your family. Or we could do what everybody did 50 years ago, which is to live on rice like the Asians, to live on corn and beans like the people in Central America, or live on potatoes like it's our choice. And thinking you can't make a difference is a way of condemning what we have to do. You don't want to do that. You want to think that you can make a difference. You have a role to play. Mary and I have a role to play too. Anyway, that's it. Who were you to do questions today?
There's so many questions. You just keep talking.
No. All I know is
it's a little carried away sometimes.
Oh, no, it's okay.
at 76 years old, I've calmed down.
Oh,
You should
I
see me.
don't
You think so? I don't know.
know about that.
You should see me when I was really hot.
Okay, here we go. This is from Hanging Out with Kim. Can you still have heart disease if your blood pressure is normal, 115/70?
Absolutely. And if your cholesterol is normal, you can still have a heart attack if your cholesterol is 150 or less. The Framingham study said that It didn't find anybody who had a heart attack with a cholesterol 150 or less. So yeah, you can. Dean Ornish, when he published his studies on reversal of heart disease, he didn't find much correlation with cholesterol or any other physical changes. The correlation as to whether or not he saw reversal in his patients was with the adherence to the program, the diet. So, there are a lot of sick, artery clogged people who have normal blood pressure.
Yeah, there are,
Yeah, so
for some reason.
if you have a
some
normal
people-
blood pressure, the next question I was asking you is, how'd you get it? Did you always have a normal blood pressure? And have you eaten a diet that supports human health?
And how much do you weigh?
Yeah, what's your cholesterol? You see, you get enough of this. As a medical person, you take into consideration a whole bunch of things, but there's nothing better than asking the patient to tell you what's going on. You can look at them, see that they're overweight, check their lab tests, see that they have elevated blood sugar, blood pressure, etc. But really, what you need to do as a doctor to understand what's wrong with your patients is to listen to them. They'll tell you. The physical exam and the lab tests are just there to confirm what you already know after listening to the patient.
Yeah, but I don't think that everybody does that.
Listens.
No, you are really good at that, and you can talk to a patient and understand what's going on underneath, but I don't think everybody else does that.
Well, you have to start by realizing that an office visit lasts more than 7 minutes, which is the
Yeah.
average office visit. And you have to start by beginning to understand the patient didn't come for a pill. The patient came to get well. The patient did not come for a bunch of excuses and drugs. But the way we're taught to end our discussion is to hand the patient a prescription. You came, you took half a day off, you spent your hard-earned money. Well, I talked to you. Now here's your prescription. Get out of my office. Send in the next patient. That's the way the business is built. How in the world you got to talk? You got to listen to talk to people. And I have to say, the way the payment system is set up, it's almost where a doctor can't afford to talk to people. You get paid for the same amount of time, whether you spend an hour. A visit's a visit. If it's 7 minutes, it's $100. If it's an hour, it's $100. It's 4 hours, it's $100. Well, there's a little variation in scale of pay that they have introduced lately, but it's still a hard one to fight as a doctor. It's tough to make a living. You got to cheat and lie. You got to do things that you know are morally wrong. Don't think we got it easy. Being a doctor's tough. Heather, go ahead. Tell me right now, not all the doctors are that way.
There's some great doctors.
Come
out
on. I know that. Thank goodness I have Heather and Mary around to help me become centered, because she's absolutely right. There are a lot of people out there who take their responsibilities seriously. And when you sign up to be a medical doctor or a nurse or even a dietitian, you took on a serious responsibility, and that is people's lives. And if you're going to lie and cheat, and omission is lying. Oh, I didn't tell them they shouldn't follow a starch-based diet. I didn't tell them that. I didn't tell them that all type 2 diabetics can be cured by weight loss. I didn't tell them that. Well, you lied to them.
Well, they didn't know.
Well, then you lied to yourself because you didn't take trouble learning it. Anyway. What, Heather?
No, nothing. Thank you for bringing up all the great doctors out there, because there are thousands of them.
There are hundreds of thousands of great doctors. And I think almost all of them went into the same intention that I went into it with, Heather. And I really mean this. It's to help other people, but they lost their way when they started to pay for malpractice insurance with a few lawsuits. They've lost their way. And plus, nobody compliments them. Nobody says, thank you, doc, for helping me lose 100 pounds, getting off 5 diabetic medications like Miss Taylor was on. How many times do you think a doctor hears that? I mean, that would cause me to be so excited about getting up in the morning, putting my pants on and going to work, if I thought I'd see one patient that thanked me seriously for what I did. But if all I hear is, oh God, not another drug doc. Do you think this one will work? Oh yeah, they spent a lot of money developing this one. Give it a try.
So we're the exception because we hear, thank you, you've changed my life.
Yes,
You
we
know,
do.
Best
Like
money
how-
I ever
like-
spent
How often do you hear that, Heather?
Every
all the
program.
time. It's
Pretty
great.
much everything. And you skip medical school. I don't think that's fair. You get all the fun, and I had to put in all the work.
I know. I'm very lucky. Thank you.
Pretty soon
Okay,
they're gonna
next.
call you-
Oh, sorry.
Pretty soon they're gonna call you Dr. Heather.
Well, some people think I'm a doctor, and gosh, listening to you for hours and hours and hours, sometimes I
Probably feel like one
Yeah.
now.
feel like I know a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that upset me is I was listening to this doctor on YouTube today who talked about how people should get a colonoscopy, stool for 1 year, and then a stool for blood the next year, and then another stool test the next year to prevent colon cancer. Very aggressive doctor. I'm not going to mention his name because someday I might be on a stage with him. Who knows? What I would have asked him is, are you a scientist? I would assume he'd say yes.
Well,
Do-
but you also said, you also told me that he recommends.
Oh, he's on a low carb
mam-
diet.
No, but mammograms and then ultrasound and
Yeah.
something else.
Oh, he's really into prevention. But what I'd say to this, or anybody that wants to contest, I'd ask him, are you a scientist? Do you believe in the scientific method? Do you understand the scientific method? Do you understand what a proper study done is? Do you know what a randomized controlled trial is? Do you value randomized controlled trials? How many randomized controlled trials have been done on colonoscopy? When was the only randomized controlled trial ever published and where on colonoscopy? I mean, you're the expert. You're the doctor who does colonoscopies every 2 or 3 years on your patients. Tell me about the only randomized controlled trial done that involved 85,000 people in Norway, Poland, other parts of Europe that was published October 27th, 2022 in the New England Journal of Medicine. Yes, it was. Look it up. October 27th, 2022 in the New England Journal of Medicine. There's the only randomized controlled trial ever done on colonoscopy involving 85,000 people. It doesn't work. And I've explained to you why. But why does somebody like this, an intelligent man, persist? I guess people
I
believe
think
things.
you have to stop watching or listening to those kind of shows right before you do one of these shows.
Yes, so really did make me mad. But like you said, you picked up first when I showed you this man. You said, "Boy, he's only 50. Maybe he can learn something in the next 26 years."
Yeah.
First thing he said to me, I said, "No, he's probably fully indoctrinated." And then you read on, you say, "Well, he follows a carnivore diet." So your next conclusion could have been he's got a thinking problem. Well, obviously. Feel sorry for him, John. Feel sorry for him. No, you should have, though.
I should have, I guess.
But see,
Okay.
that's the kind of care you're getting. Anyway, we'll go ahead, Heather.
All right, you ready? Moving on.
Moving on.
Let's see. This is from Aqua Pumpkin. They get weak, shaky, lightheaded, and sweaty about 2.5 hours after eating a starch-based meal. It lasts for about 30 minutes.
Well, it
They're
sounds like
130
hypoglycemia.
pounds, 6 feet tall. So yeah, what would you recommend?
Well, it sounds-
130 pounds, 6 feet tall.
Hey,
That's-
I'm not much bigger than that.
I know, but I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's not very much weight.
Oh, he's thin.
Yeah.
But what it sounds like he's suffering from hypoglycemia, which is where the blood sugars become abnormally low. And we used to blame a lot of problems on hypoglycemia. We started out with the excuse that you're neurotic, and we couldn't explain your problems. And then you have hypoglycemia, and then one excuse after another. But some people do have low blood sugars, and particularly people with liver disease that can't store sugar, glycogen. Then between meals, they'll run a low blood sugar.
So would you recommend that someone like this eat more often?
No, I'd recommend they eat all whole foods, and more often too, Mary. Yeah, that's a good thought.
No.
More often and all whole foods. We talked about this. Haber's the man's name. It was published in the Lancet. It was published in 1978. Okay, Haber is his name. He did an article a study where he took people and he hooked them up to an IV needle so he could draw blood on them, every actually 15 minutes. And he checked their insulin level and their blood sugar level. And what he did with these subjects is he fed them an apple. They chewed the apple, swallowed it, whole apple, stems, peels, everything. And what he found is their blood sugar went up as it was supposed to, and then it went down a little bit below normal level. And then he took the apple and he ground it up into applesauce. I mean, this is the peels, the stems, the seeds, everything just ground up. And the blood sugar went up just about the same level, and it went much lower. Well, what happened is the insulin production was much higher with the disrupted food, the disrupted fiber that was caused by the blender that ground up the apple. Okay, so the insulin levels went higher because he had a disrupted food. Okay, disrupted, that means it got blended. Okay, tore up the fiber. So his insulin levels went higher and his blood sugar went much lower. And then they fed the apple juice to this person. Their blood sugars went up about the same level, but their blood sugars went way down into a hypoglycemic level, and their insulin levels went way high. So in addition to your suggestion, Mary, which is a good one, probably the most effective one, is make sure you don't eat any processed food. Yeah. Otherwise, you might have a pancreatic tumor that produces insulin and you're going to die in a few years. It could be. I mean, that way, just think of what if instead of me saying that to the person and letting them eat a healthy diet for a couple of weeks and see if it goes away, I could have got you into a CAT scan. I could have sunk you into a $500,000 medical business by telling you could have a pancreatic tumor. Let's go for that one.
They do that.
They do that. Let me tell you, the worst thing could possibly be it could kill you. But that's the question. Is you say to the doc, well, what's the worst thing that happened if I stop the pills you prescribe? You could die. Well, how often does that happen?
Rarely.
All right, go ahead, Heather. But that's what I would do. Eat food whole, like Mary said, just eat frequently. And maybe more of the higher bulky type foods and how do you know you're hypoglycemic? Did you buy a blood sugar measure and measure it, or did you just feel weak and shaky and cold? If you're really serious, get yourself a $75 blood glucose measurement and check your sugars at a schedule like I told you. See if you really are hypoglycemic. Hypoglycemic, I don't know what that is. I mean, I know you can get that when you give yourself shots of insulin or you take sulfonylurea pills. Yeah, I know that's hypoglycemia, but I don't know hypoglycemia when somebody's otherwise healthy. Because people can run blood sugars of 40 and still not have symptoms. Well, normal blood sugar, you'd say, would be 100. I don't think you have a pancreatic tumor. I mean, it's not that common, only because it's not that common. But I just thought, whatever. Just thought I'd throw that in to continue on our conversation tonight.
Something else to think about. All right, let's see. This is from Danny, wondering if diabetes comes back once you've cured it if you don't stick to the McDougall program.
Okay.
I can answer that one.
I got one for you. If you smoke 40 cigarettes a day, okay? If you smoke 40 cigarettes a day and you cough and all kind of mucus comes out of your lungs, then you're sick. And you quit smoking the 40 cigarettes a day and your cough goes away and you're wheezing and your gunk in your lungs stops. Will it come back if you start 40 cigarettes a day? What do you think? The body is always trying to heal that mucus, that cough, that wheezing. I mean, the lung tubules are closing down to keep the poison from coming in. Your body's trying to survive, but you keep lighting up 40 tubes of tobacco a day. It can't keep up with the damage. It's the same thing with your diabetes and your heart disease. You keep shoveling fat and cholesterol in your mouth all day long. Your body hasn't stopped healing. Even if you have cancer, your body has not stopped healing or trying to. It's the fact that, it reaches a stage where it's just too late.
Or besides, if you're eating the McDougall program and you're feeling great, why would you stop?
I quit smoking. I quit smoking October 20th, 1972. Best thing I ever did for myself. One of the hardest things I ever did for myself, too. But I relish every day. But I have to tell you, here it is, it was 1972. It's 60, 71, 61 years. I don't know, it's a long time. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about a cigarette.
Oh, come on, really?
Well, maybe a day, maybe not a week, especially when I'm downwind from cigarette smoking. I mean, that addiction.
It's the only time that I ever notice
Does it
the
smell good?
cigarettes. Does it smell? Yes, it does.
Okay,
Yeah,
and you're an addict too.
I know.
Yeah.
Fine.
That's good.
But I don't think about it. I never think
Well-
about it during the day unless I smell somebody smoking.
And then it's always
And then-
pleasurable thoughts.
And then it's like, oh yeah, I remember smoking.
And do you have any doubt what would happen if you started again?
Not a bit.
All right. So in answer to your question, smoking is abnormal behavior. The atmosphere is supposed to be clean. Eating the Western diet is abnormal behavior. Eating a starch-based diet is the food that supports your health, that you're intended to eat. So you answer the question, is this just remission? And when you go back to the animal food diet, will you get sick? Yes, you will. Is this a cure because you stopped the cause? Yes, you have. This kind of thinking is very important because my colleagues, when they see patients like ours, they get rid of their inflammatory arthritis, et cetera. They say, well, you're just in remission. Well, you are if you go back to eating the cheese and the beef and drinking the milk. You're just in remission.
Probably why they say they're in remission, because they figure everybody's going to go back to.
Plus,
the way
they've
they
never
used to
seen
eat.
anybody get well, Mary. And they see partial evidence of remission with the drugs they give, because these drugs cause immune suppression. So the pain gets better, the swelling gets better, and they call that remission. That's not remission. The destruction of joints continues at about the same rate. The day of death is about the same. Do you know that half the patients with rheumatoid arthritis with the best treatments available are dead? Half in 20 years.
That's terrible.
You call that remission? Yeah, I died with less red joints, less pain. I died with less pain. We'll definitely have to put this show in the can, Heather.
Been great. So I've been typing in the chat. Someone asked the question, and if you or I get mammograms, Mom, and I answered no.
Of course not.
And then people started chiming in about sonograms. They're getting sonograms instead, or thermograms. What's the difference? Would you recommend it?
Well, the sonograms, the thermograms are less specific in their diagnosis. They may be more sensitive. They may find more abnormal masses. But as far as identifying, in other words, being specific about it being breast cancer, they're much less accurate than a mammogram. But a mammogram is terrible. It's a blunt instrument. It is crude. You're looking at cells that have been growing for 10 years, or actually as many as 17 years, the tumor has been growing. By 14 to 17 years is average that a mammogram finds a tumor. It's been growing 14 to 17 years.
But the other things would be the same way, a sonogram or
If it found it.
if it found it.
But
it would still have been growing for that many years.
if it was a cancer.
Yeah,
If it was like a cyst, it could have grown overnight,
yeah, sure.
And of course, you're with a sonogram, you're going to find anything that's a mass. With the mammogram, with X-rays, you're going to have a more defined mass, so you'll be more specific. But the sonogram will be more sensitive. In other words, it'll find more lumps. But as far as identifying them accurately as cancer, it's less specific. You probably don't care about the difference. But the important thing is the Cochrane collaboration in the year 2012 put out a brochure that said, you want to know who the Cochrane collaboration is, right? There are 50,000 scientists around the world in 150 countries that get together to try and give unbiased reviews of scientific treatments and articles. That's where the Cochrane collaboration is. In 2012, they came out and they told, based on the evidence from mammograms, it's no longer recommended that you undergo routine screening. Look it up. Cochrane collaboration, 2012, mammograms. Why did they do that? Because it does more harm than good. But, just the problem's the food. If you want to reduce your chances of suffering, you fix the food. If you want to find more areas of suffering, you go to the medical doctors because they'll look and find things. Is that how you want to spend your money? Like this lady, Miss Taylor, she spends her money on getting 5-6 shots a day, going to the doctor, worrying about an emergency visit in the middle of the night. Is that how you want to spend your money? How about spending on oatmeal for breakfast or bean burritos for dinner? How about that? And not dealing with the medical business. You know, it's important that these people are here, hospitals and ERs and doctors and so on. Don't misunderstand me. You know, we've made some tremendous progress in helping people, but not with dietary diseases, because we refused to deal with the food. You know, we barely dealt with tobacco back in '64 when Luther Terry came out and gave the Surgeon General's report on smoking. We barely were able to get by the tobacco giants. You think that we're going to get around the food giants? I mean, think about it. Think about it. Back then, you know, back then, half the population didn't smoke. And so half the people could see the insanity that was going on. And the evidence that condemns tobacco, you could put it in a small room in a small library, but it's sufficient enough for the people who are sane to see that it's harmful. Think about the food industry. Let's just say fewer than 3% of people can see beyond their dinner plate. And the library that would be filled with information that condemns the Western diet, killing people, it would fill the biggest library I could find. I've got it. I used to have it. It used to be in my basement. Now it's on the internet. You get my point? Back then, when we changed smoking, which hopefully you're old enough to remember that, well, maybe not, but everybody smoked. I would go into the doctor's lounge and half the doctors were smoking.
At least.
Yeah. And so we believed it was good to smoke. Baseball players smoke cigarettes. Models smoke cigarettes to stay thin. This has exercised your lungs. This was a good thing to do. Us that didn't smoke, and I wasn't one of them, couldn't see that. I'll end with this. You say I got to quit pretty soon, right?
Yeah, well, we have 2 minutes.
All right, I'll end with
One
this.
minute.
My mother, who lived to be 93, had terrible emphysema, smoked from the age of 26 to the age of 86. She's got me as a doctor, Mary as a nurse, my sister's a nurse, her husband is a doctor, my brother is a doctor. We spent our whole life with her, telling her she's got to quit smoking. You know what her answer was? You want me to get so nervous I'll get in a car accident and kill myself? You're asking me to quit smoking? That's what she used to tell us. I mean, how can you argue
All
with
the
that?
time.
How can you argue with that? You want me to be healthy? I'm liable to get out there and walk down the street and trip on something and break my head open and kill myself. I'm not going to get healthy. Or it could be like they used to say about alcoholics. They were so loose and drunk, they got hit by a car, they'd be limber and they wouldn't get hurt.
Yeah.
You go out there, I'm so fat, you can hit me with a car and I won't get hurt. I didn't like that analogy, huh?
No.
I think it's time to quit, Heather.
We're out of time. That
Well,
hour's up.
Like I say, get rid of this one.
That's great. Okay. Thanks, Mom and Dad, Dr. McDougall and Mary. We'll see everyone next Sunday. It is full. We are oversold for our October course. So,
Or Heather, you can get one more person in for me, please. You can't, huh? Well, I know you.
Yeah.
I know you won't.
But we're accepting signups for January, and you can see Dr. Lim now and get in touch with your support specialist. So your care can start right away. So
We can get you started right away.
Yeah.
So October, we'll have a lot of fun with people who want to be enlightened, who don't want to be sick anymore. We'll help you get well.
So that'll be happening next weekend.
Is that right?
Yeah.
January will be here before you know it.
time's
Sure.
flying by. All right. That was a great hour. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you all next Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific.